the weekend, Jio and Google put out a statement saying that they have delayed the launch of their smartphone, which was to be hitting the airwaves, so to speak, this Sunday. Now, the statement said both companies have begun testing JioPhone Next with a limited set of users for further refinement and are actively working to make it available more widely in time for the Diwali festive season. This additional time will also help mitigate the current industry-wide global semiconductor shortages. So they're not clearly saying it's only because of semiconductor shortages, but obviously semiconductor shortages are playing a part in the decision to postpone this much anticipated launch. It was supposed to be the smartphone slayer, especially in a lower price category, and the stock for Reliance Industries has also been running up because of this. But that's just one part of the story, because frankly this is not a problem of Reliance Jio and Google alone. Semiconductor shortages have been hitting several categories of products over the last many months, nearly a year now, honestly. And auto companies and automakers were the worst hit so far, simply because they didn't anticipate the kind of demand they would need and they didn't book in advance. Post the pandemic, when movements and mobility had really been restricted, sales of cars, etc., were not happening to that extent, they kind of took it easy and then were suddenly hit by a shortage of chips. Mobile phone manufacturers, on the other hand, had a steady supply, perhaps better planning, bigger quantities that they had ordered, and they were doing fine. But the shortage could be catching up to them as well, and that is the concern we could see around the world. In fact, to speak more on this, I'm joined by Tarun Pathak, Associate Director at Counterpoint Research, and Hari Om Rai, CMD of Lava International. Welcome to both of you, and thank you so much for speaking with us this evening on the India Development Debate. Tarun, let me begin by getting you to set the premise of what is happening with the JioPhone and Google and around the world, really. So far, we've not heard or seen or felt the pinch of a semiconductor shortage as far as smartphones are concerned. Is that going to change?
Yeah, thanks, Mana, for having me on the show. I think you have rightly mentioned that smartphone industry until now has been like putting up a great fight to actually mitigate some of those risks that were posing. But now this particular shortage has expanded to many more categories and now hitting the smartphone. I think within smartphone, you have almost like 300 plus components, and there are certain components that are being impacted the most. I think even within smartphones, the ICs are the components that are being impacted the most. For example, the power management ICs and the display driver ICs. I think the biggest challenge for these component for these smartphone makers is you can't really rely on certain set of players. Today is your particular smartphone is developed across the nation, across different countries, having different impact from this COVID happened in the past 12 months or so. So right now, if you look at from the planning perspective, smartphone manufacturer plans almost like the industry goes on like 7 to 8 months in advance, and they have been like doing really well until now. But now the demand is huge. So if you look at the second largest market in the world, India, last year same time the demand for smartphones were almost more than 100 million units for the second half of 2020. This year we are checking our channel surveys and all, the demand is even higher. And the reason is because in India a lot of people are upgrading their phones, as you have rightly mentioned, but the supply is not catching up to this particular demand. I think this is a classic demand versus supply mismatch, because you need to anticipate this kind of demand almost like 8 months in advance, which was difficult because you have different variables into play. COVID was impacted, second wave was there, and plus there are other new use cases emerged in different categories, like work from home has actually accelerated the trend for like laptops, tablets, and other electronics, where certain components were diverted, and now this is being impacted the smartphone industry as well. We are already seeing signs of this.
Yeah. Okay, so what exactly are those signs and what are the nitty-gritties? Hari Om Rai, great to have you on the show. Can you share your perspective of, where do players find themselves when it comes to actually acquiring these chips, and do big players like Apple and Samsung and OnePlus to that extent have the ability to corner the market?
No, actually, it's a very, in every business, the winner takes all is a principle, and therefore the larger players definitely have more wherewithal to corner the chips, and therefore the smaller players definitely, are sidelined. But that's okay. The demand actually is there, and the shortage of supply is fundamentally there. Now, there are two contexts to it. One is the consumer's context, and another is the company's context. So, if you see from the consumer's context, we have about 100,000 shops selling phones in India, and about two large players distributing phones from Flipkart and Amazon also distributing phones. So there are very large number of outlets, and the inventory is there with the distributors, the retailers, and the large number of companies trying to sell the inventory. So as far as the consumer's context is there, I think they are able to find phones, maybe a particular model, this brand, that brand, that's happening, but consumer is still able to find phones. As far as the company's context is concerned, the companies are, for example, companies like Lava, we are able to finally match the demand. Probably we need to buy chips from the black market, I would say, at higher prices. And we are trying, whatever possible to be
Really?
done to ensure. Absolutely. That actually happens. We have
No,
to
no.
ensure that the
Let me get
demands are.
more. Let me get more detail on that. Hari, are you saying that some companies have to now find chips in the black market? A black market for chips has also emerged.
Black market actually is a word I have used for if we are, for example, there are three chip suppliers in the whole world, and if we have to buy not from the chip supplier, the same chips we are buying from a distributor maybe, and the gray markets, it's called, in the market, which is a higher price. So you don't, it's 100% open market, but you're not buying from the chip suppliers, but you're buying from the holders. Maybe you're buying from, those companies who have more power, have given more projections, and they are selling in the market, and also, using chips for their own manufacturing. So there are, these are market dynamics which you have to handle. And of course, one has to resort to such, methods, because finally the consumer's demand, needs to be met, and companies like ours, have to fetch a little higher price to ensure that we are able to consistently produce and meet the consumer's demand to the extent possible. Of course, despite doing all these things, the shortage is a
What?
shortage, and you can't get away with it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, no. So what is the kind of premium, say, you have to pay, Mr. Rai, to make sure you secure
Yeah.
chips and don't delay further new launches?
So, if you see the semiconductors, there are the biggest things in the semiconductor is the microprocessor, and then you have memory, and then you have the driver ICs and all. I think depending upon the chips, what we are seeking, a particular model of chip, from 10% to 15-20% premium on the chip side, and maybe 5 to 15% premium on the driver IC side, depending upon what you're buying. And prices have already been heating up for a very long time, even on the display side, but those prices have come down. So I think it's the time when a lot of things, actually the prices are going up, from the metal to, because every single product has the input of metal, and because the demand supply mismatch and logistics prices are going up. So put together, it is putting pressure on the whole supply chain, entire supply chain of the whole world. And therefore the prices are heating up from the other side. But generally, if you're only talking about the chip side, the prices are between, if you're buying from the open market, in the open market, I would say, the black market or open market, the price is about 10 to 15% up. Yes, for the chips.
Okay, okay. So the aspect is that if even the largest players in the world are now saying they're going to get hit, how far will this go? Tarun, tell us about launches which have been delayed or the kind of changes in strategy large OEMs are making. We have a big Apple launch that is which is right around the corner. There are reports that some of their iPad models may be hit. There are reports that companies like Samsung are now focusing on certain high-end models and deciding which phones they really want to make, maybe the ones which fetch them better profits. So are these the kind of changes we're already beginning to see?
Yeah, definitely. So, Mana, what happens? So, if you look at in a typical market like India, so you have almost like 210 new smartphone launches last year. So, I'm saying like 2020. This year, we are projecting that number will fall down to 190 or so. So, that's a roughly 8% decline. So, what these OEMs are doing, so they are reworking on number of variables. So, for example, one thing they are doing is making sure they are not creating too many model IDs. So making sure the SKUs they are launching in the market are manageable. So for example, if they had to launch, let's say 3 different variants of a particular phone, they will go for just 2 or 1 variant of that particular devices. So what is happening now is a basically mix and match situation, or to see what is the best product you are going to bring in the market, because this is a very, very critical part of period of the year, because 62% of the annual sales for some companies are actually happen during the festive season. So they do not want to miss out on this particular situation. So even if the units are less, they might go for higher selling devices. So for example, if a OEM decided to launch 3 products in, let's say, 10,000 rupees, they are not finding enough components to bring those particular models in the market. So ideally, they'll go for maybe 1 or 2 model that will be worth 14,000 or so, and push some of the users to upgrade to that particular model. So there are different type of strategies these OEMs will look forward to bring in. And I think what the key part of this is how to make sure the consumer who are upgrading during this festive season, because they are coming with a huge expectation of the offers, because everything people upgrade during the festive season or so, their expectation is we'll get the best offer for this year. Now the question is, will OEMs will take a hit in terms of offers? Are they going to give a very generous offer during this festive season, or we'll see some kind of cut down in the number of aggressive offers we'll see during this festive season as well? And of course, you need to increase the prices of your existing phones as well, because the model you have launched in the market, let's say 3 months back, and is still selling well, you can't still sell it at the same price, because the price of the components have increased by almost 10 to 15%. So you need to pass on to some of this cost to the consumer as well. So for consumer, I think it will be like less choice and lesser offers this can turn out to be. So yeah, these are the kind of implications we might see, and that is happening across the OEMs. Not even the
No,
biggest OEMs are immune to this.
Tarun, just explain to me, have prices already gone up in the last 1 year? Have they passed on this 10 to 15% increase, or are you saying this is yet to come? So 10 to 15% increase in existing models and no offers, or very few offers for new models?
Yeah, so we have already seen a 7 to 10% price hike already in the past 6 months. It has not happened in the past 1 year. So for example, a couple of brands have increased the pricing of their best selling models, not just once, maybe 2 or 3 times. So what they have done is maybe they'll increase the price by 5% at one time, and maybe in another couple of months they will further increase the price, looking at it, because they do not want to ideally pass on to this 10 to 15 at once. So that is one side of the story, the existing models. The second is the new models, because of course the new models you are going to launch in the market, you'll factor on all these variables of that will lead to the price increase and everything. So the mobiles that are going to launch in the market might be at a higher price than if not for this component shortage at all.
Uh, Let me pick up, if you allow me, the
Yes,
questions
Hari.
Actually,
Yes.
you've asked 3 questions. Let me try and pick those questions up. One was the Jio and Google launch. I think it is not entirely because of the the chip shortage. It is also because of the development time. Then during the development, the delays happens, and that's the reason why the launch has been delayed because the phone might not have been ready. On the second thing, on the Apple side, I think no chip manufacturer in the world has guts to delay the Apple, supplies. This is a very, because most of the chips, for the mobile phones in terms of value are being used by Apple. So I don't think Apple, shipment is going to be delayed because of the chip supplies, or it is going to be, hit in terms of a launch. Of course, a little bit of, supply issue they may also feel because the demand is very is very much there for their products also. So I think that's and the third thing what you said about the Samsung, that why they are moving up, it's a very fundamental thing because Apple is doing an Apple and rest all are doing Android. And when you are doing Android, as Korea, you are sitting at a $35,000 per capita income and you're trying to, sell the products, competing with the lower end also. It's very difficult for the a manufacturer from Korea to compete with Chinese companies who are sitting at $10,000-12,000 per capita income. So it's the strategy which Samsung has to follow, because despite that they control the entire supply chain, I think it's very critical for Samsung to move up. So therefore, it's a very natural strategy. And the third thing is that the prices of the chips have gone up, but the chip is not the whole product. So the cost of the chip is limited to, let's say, 20% or 30%. If the price of chip has gone up by 15%, so it has not actually, the entire, this thing cannot go to the market. And of course, there are many other, prices are heating up. So because of that, maybe 7 to 8%, 9% kind of prices have been, and the companies were losing money also for some time, and they are, coming up with new launches, and through those new launches, they are ensuring that the, price of the new launches are getting up. So that's how the market is moving up, and it is going to move up for quite some time.
But you're no, absolutely. But Hari, the point you made about Apple, obviously, I mean, I think you said it well and you put it quite bluntly. No chip manufacturer has the guts to hold up an Apple shipment. But Apple executives in their last earnings call in the beginning of August did say very clearly that we may be hit by the fourth quarter. That this will catch up as well, which is the question that we're asking today. Is the shortage of semiconductors going to be evened out by the time it starts hitting supplies to an extent where consumers won't get what they want in the market? I mean, is that crisis possibly looming? Hari, let me take that question to you first.
Yeah, so as I've told you, as far as Apple is concerned, the executive might have said these things because they have to be prepared for what is going to be there. I talked about their launch. So their launch cannot be delayed because of the chip shortage. And therefore, a little bit of, shortage, they can also sort of, they have to sort of this thing, but that's not an issue at all. Now, as I've told you, there are, other than Apple, for example, there are so many Android manufacturers in the whole world, and there are so many models, so many products. So finally, if one of the models is getting short, other models available, to fulfill the gap, the other brands are available. So therefore, consumer finally is going to, find its phone. In my mind, it is not going to trouble that much. Of course, the prices are going to be heating up, and the price is going to be passed on to the market. And next 9 months, I think supplies are going to be all right from the chip side. So therefore, things are going to be all right after 9 months.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let me take that same question to you, Tarun. So it's unlikely that consumers will see the kind of situation car buyers are seeing today, say in India, that if you want a specific model and it's a popular model, or even those who have booked, have to wait a few months now. Waiting for cars in India has, to this extent has not been around for a while, but you're going to have to wait. So none of that is going to happen as far as smartphones are concerned, is it? You will get what you want, you might have to pay a little more for it.
Yeah, definitely. I think smartphone fundamentally is a segment which is very different from the automobile for that matter, because you have tons of SKU. The refresh rate is quite higher as compared to car, which is being launched in like a couple of years or so. And then if you look at the availability in the market, because we still, as like Hari mentioned, that if you look at in the market, we still have some kind of inventory that is being there in the market that needs to be also exhausted over a period of time. So I think consumer might not see the same level of shortage, but yes, for from the pricing perspective or the offers perspective, they might not get the same as they would have got, like if not for the component shortage or what they have got an year back or so. So OEMs will need to find an innovative ways to bringing those promotional offers. Like for example, trade-in can be one of example where you can trade in your existing device and you get some sort of value for that, and that will reduce your upfront purchase also, or EMIs also. So you might see more EMIs getting into this festive season. The offers related on the premium would be more, so that the consumers are actually pushed to buy a high-end phone rather than going for the ones which are in shortage or where the availability is less.
Okay, so it's going to be interesting times ahead. Smartphone manufacturers are beginning to feel the heat, but of course, Apple says it might feel a pinch by the fourth quarter. As of now, all eyes on their big launch tomorrow. Thank you so much, Hari. Thank you so much, Tarun, for joining us.